They walked with their bodies moving in complex unity, close together. He held her hand, and they went the long way round by the road, to be farther. Always she felt as if she were supported off her feet, as if her feet were light as little breezes in motion. He would kiss her again, but not again that night, with the same deep, reaching kiss. She was aware now, aware of what a kiss might be, and so it was more difficult to come to him. She went to bed, feeling all warm with electric warmth, as if the gush of dawn were within her, upholding her, and she slept deeply, sweetly, oh so sweetly. In the morning she felt sound as an ear of wheat, fragrant and firm and full. They continued to be lovers, in the first wondering state of unrealisation. Ursula told nobody. She was entirely lost in her own world. Yet some strange affectation made her seek for a spurious confidence. She had at school a quiet, meditative, serious-souled friend called Ethel, and to Ethel must Ursula confide the story. Ethel listened absorbedly, with bowed, unbetraying head, whilst Ursula told her secret. Oh, it was so lovely, his gentle, delicate way of making love. Ursula talked like a practised lover. "Do you think," asked Ursula, "it is wicked to let a man kiss you? Real kisses, not flirting?" "I should think," said Ethel, "it depends. He kissed me under the ash trees on Cossethay Hill. Do you think it was wrong?" "When?" "On Thursday night, when he was seeing me home. But real kisses, real. He is an officer in the army." "What time was it?" asked the deliberate Ethel. "I don't know, about 9:30. There was a pause. "I think it's wrong," said Ethel, lifting her head. "Know him." She spoke with some contempt. "Yes, I do. He is half a Pole, and a Baron too. In England he is equivalent to a lord. My grandmother was his father's friend." But the two friends were hostile. It was as if Ursula wanted to divide herself from her acquaintances, in asserting her connection with Anton, as she now called him. He came a good deal to Cossethay, because her mother was fond of him. Anna Brangwen became something of a grande dame with Skrebensky, very calm, taking things for granted. "Aren't the children in bed?" cried Ursula petulantly, as she came in with the young man. "They will be in bed in half an hour," said the mother. "There is no peace," cried Ursula. "The children must live, Ursula," said her mother. And Skrebensky was against Ursula in this. Why should she be so insistent? But then, as Ursula knew, he did not have the perpetual tyranny of young children about him. He treated her mother with great courtesy, to which Mrs. Brangwen returned an easy, friendly hospitality. Something pleased the girl in her mother's calm assumption of state. It seemed impossible to abate Mrs. Brangwen's position. She could never be beneath anyone in public relation. Between Brangwen and Skrebensky there was an unbridgeable silence. Sometimes the two men made a slight conversation, but there was no interchange. Ursula rejoiced to see her father retreating into himself against the young man. She was proud of Skrebensky in the house. His lounging, languorous indifference irritated her, and yet cast a spell over her. She knew it was the outcome of a spirit of laisser-aller, combined with profound young vitality. Yet it irritated her deeply. Notwithstanding, she was proud of him as he lounged in his lambent fashion in her home. He was so attentive and courteous to her mother and to herself all the time. It was wonderful to have his awareness in the room. She felt rich and augmented by it, as if she were the positive attraction and he the flow towards her. And his courtesy and his agreement might be all her mother's, but the lambent flicker of his body was for herself. She held it. She must ever prove her power. "I meant to show you my little wood carving," she said. "I'm sure it's not worth showing that," said her father. "Would you like to see it?" she asked, leaning towards the door. And his body had risen from the chair, though his face seemed to want to agree with her parents. "It is in the shed," she said, and he followed her out of the door, whatever his feelings might be. In the shed they played at kisses, really played at kisses. It was a delicious, exciting game. She turned to him, her face all laughing, like a challenge, and he accepted the challenge at once. He twined his hand full of her hair, and gently, with his hand wrapped round with hair behind her head, gradually brought face nearer to his, whilst she laughed, breathless with challenge, and his eyes gleamed with answer, with enjoyment of the game. And he kissed her, asserting his will over her, and she kissed him back, asserting her deliberate enjoyment of him. Daring and reckless and dangerous they knew it was, their game, each playing with fire, not with love. A sort of defiance of all the world possessed her in it. She would kiss him just because she wanted to. And a daredevilry in him, like a cynicism, a cut at everything he pretended to serve, retaliated in him. She was very beautiful then, so wide-opened, so radiant, so palpitating, exquisitely vulnerable and poignantly, wrongly, throwing herself to risk. It roused a sort of madness in him. Like a flower shaking and wide-opened in the sun, she tempted him and challenged him. And he accepted the challenge. Something went fixed in him. And did the challenge. Something went fixed in him. And under all her laughing, poignant recklessness was the quiver of tears. That almost sent him mad. Mad with desire, with pain, whose only issue was through possession of her body. So, shaken, afraid, they went back to her parents in the kitchen and dissimulated. But something was roused in both of them that they could not now allay. It intensified and heightened their senses. They were more vivid and powerful in their being. But under it all was a poignant sense of transience. It was a magnificent self-assertion on the part of both of them. He asserted himself before her. He felt himself infinitely male and infinitely irresistible. She asserted herself before him. She knew herself infinitely desirable, and hence infinitely strong. And after all, what could either of them get from such a passion but a sense of his or of her own maximum was something finite and sad, for the human soul at its maximum wants a sense of the infinite. Nevertheless, it was begun now, this passion, and must go on. The passion of Ursula to know her own maximum self, limited and so defined against him. She could limit and define herself against him, the male. She could be her maximum self, female, oh female, triumphant for one moment in exquisite assertion against the male, in supreme contradistinction to the male. The next afternoon, when he came prowling, she went with him across to the church. Her father was gradually gathering in anger against him. Her mother was hardening in anger against her. But the parents were naturally tolerant in action. They went together across the churchyard, Ursula and Skrebensky, and ran to hiding in the church. It was dimmer in there than the sunny afternoon outside, but the mellow glow among the bowed stone was very sweet. The windows bowed stone was very sweet. The windows burned in ruby and in blue. They made magnificent arras to their bower of secret stone. "What a perfect place for a rendezvous," he said, in a hushed voice, glancing round. She too glanced round the familiar interior. The dimness and stillness chilled her, but her eyes lit up with daring. Here she would assert her indomitable gorgeous female self, here she would open her female flower like a flame, in this dimness that was more passionate than light. They hung apart a moment, then wilfully turned to each other for the desired contact. She put her arms round him, she cleaved her body to his, and with her hands pressed upon his shoulders, on his back, she seemed to feel right through him, to know his young, tense body right through. And it was so fine, so hard, yet so exquisitely subject and under her control. Reached him her mouth and drank his full kiss, drank it fuller and fuller. And it was so good. It was very, very good. She seemed to be filled with his kiss, as if she had drunk strong, glowing sunshine. She glowed all inside. The sunshine seemed to beat upon her heart underneath. She had drunk so beautifully. She drew away and looked at him, radiant, exquisitely, glowingly beautiful and satisfied, but radiant as an illumined cloud. To him this was bitter, that she was so radiant and satisfied. She laughed upon him, blind to him, so full of her own bliss, never doubting but that he was the same as she was. And radiant as an angel, she went with him out of the church, as if her feet were beams of light that walked on flowers for footsteps. He went beside her, his soul clenched, his body unsatisfied. Was she going to make this easy triumph over him? There was now no self-bliss, only pain and confused anger. It was high summer, and the hay harvest was almost over. It would be finished on Saturday. On Saturday, however, Skrebensky was going away. He could not stay longer. Having decided to go, he became very tender and loving to her, kissing her gently, with such soft, sweet, insidious closeness that they were both of them intoxicated. The very last Friday of his stay he met her coming out of school, and took her to tea in the town. Then he had a motor car to drive her home. Her excitement at riding in a motor car was greatest of all. He too was very proud of this last coup. He saw Ursula kindle and flare up to the romance of the situation. She raised her head like a young horse, snuffing with wild delight. The car swerved round a corner, and Ursula was swung against Skrebensky. The contact made her aware of him. With a swift, foraging impulse, she sought for his hand, and clasped it in her own, so close, so combined, as if they were two children. The wind blew in on Ursula's face. The mud flew in a soft, wild rush from the wheels. The country was blackish green, with the silver of new hay here and there, and masses of trees